Your brother's soul is mine. You will be next.
Hello everyone and welcome to Action RPG. My Chthonic Fissure Overcap Necrotic Resistance build is ready. I am live right now and I've been live for 12 hours on Twitch and we've been testing, we've been finding new uniques, and this build guide is now ready. Now, this isn't going to be as polished as my normal build guides are, but I'm still going to take you through skills, passives, gear, and kind of give you an idea of how the build plays as well. And we are going to start with skills. Now, looking on here, we're using Chthonic Fissure, Chaos Bolts, Rip Blood, Bone Curse, and Soul Feast. And you will notice that my old build, I was using Profane Veil. I'm not using that anymore. I'm now using Soul Feast, and I'll explain this when we get to the gear portion. Now, for Chthonic Fissure, it's almost identical. Actually, it really is identical. It's just now that we've got some gear, we have more points put in. So we've taken some mana regen to help you with keeping your mana positive, and we've maxed out Tomb, which is going to give us damage multiplicative to our Torment. Moving over to Chaos Bolts, and Chaos Bolts is now fully triggered from Chthonic Fissure because of Rupture. You are not manually using Chaos Bolts, Rip Blood, or Bone Curse. Okay, just so you know, you're never actually casting these. Now, for Chaos Bolts, 23 points is the maximum. Nothing else does anything for you other than 23 points, because you are not manually casting it. You want to go up and then down first. So you want to make sure you get the Rip Blood auto trigger. And then you want to go around and get the Bone Curse auto trigger. You then come to the left and you can max out Damn Chance and Ignite Chance and get Misery for the multiplicative damage on Damned, Ignited, Bleed, and Frostbitten. You're not manually casting this anymore. Moving over to Rip Blood, this is also changed. I initially had it spec'd into damage. We are now going survivability with 23 points. And these final 2 points you don't need. But since I have them based upon this build, I just put them right here. But ultimately, this is going to generate a ton of ward for your build. And again, it is auto cast from Chaos Bolts. Moving over to Bone Curse. Again, this has been changed a little bit. We're now extending the tree down and making sure this is a necrotic damage spell. And then since we have a couple extra points, we are maxing out the slow duration. Last but not least, and the newcomer Soul Feast. And this is what you are going to be casting all the time. So you are going to be using your movement skills that are unspec'd. You're going to be making Chthonic Fissures, and you're going to be just mass spamming Soul Feast. This skill feels so good. Literally, right when I switched to it, I was like, holy crap, this feels broken. Now you want to go to the right first, and you want to take these nodes. This is going to give you a huge boost of ward and damage multiplicative to cursed enemies. And then you want to come to the left for cast speed. And we're going to take Damn Chance per Intelligence, and we're going to take Necrotic Penetration. Okay. Again, this will make sense when we go over the gear. Switching to the passive tree. Now, the passive tree did change a little bit, but not much. Again, we were doing a lot of testing, and there's lots of different ways you could take the passive tree. So it's kind of how you feel. But the base tree has not changed. And then the other 90 points right now, with the exception of 3, we have 3 into Hunger for Necromancer, and these are the last 3 points. We have 90 into Warlock. We have added 5 into Soul Stealer to keep your mana up. This is very important. And just to be clear, if you have more mana regen than I currently have and you don't need Soul Stealer, you could gain these 5 points back, but I need it. Everything else coming through here is the same. We tested Aspect of Death. I think if you had a 20% or a high rolled Oracle Amulet, you might be able to take this. It does give you a big boost to your damage and your life, but it basically takes away your ward because you're damning yourself so much that your ward is getting eaten based upon the stacks on you. We are spec'd into Ignite Overload and Damned Overload, and we are still triggering Witchfire. So none of this changes. And for the most part, it feels the same. Now again, I just want to say this one more time. If you have a good Oracle Amulet and damage over time does not affect you, and let's say you had good mana, you could pull these 5 points out and you could put them over here. I recommend testing this for yourself. Also for Lich, it sucks. We're not using Apo and we're not using Survival of the Cruel. Both awesome nodes, but we're not taking them. Switching over to gear. Now, this is still here. Our Bone Helmet is still here, and we're getting Ward 1% per 3% uncapped Necrotic Resistance. This has not changed. In the passive tree, we are also taking Imperishable, which again, Ward Decay Threshold per 1% Necrotic Resistance over cap. In the skill tree, under Chthonic Fissure, Twisted Waves, damage per 2% over cap Necrotic Resistance. So you will notice that when I'm looking at the gear, we currently have almost 800% Necrotic Resistance over cap, because we are taking it as the tier 6 affix on everything, and we'll go around the horn. Amulet, armor, belt, boots, gloves, relic, ring. Now, before we cover the final item, let's go over blessings and idols. Idols couldn't be simpler. These are all life idols. Every single one as much life as you can get. Currently on the build planner, I'm at 3,800. Under blessings, I've gone survival. Void resistance, lightning resistance, physical resistance, endurance percent, and crit avoidance. Now, what makes this whole build possible? Everything else you don't need, but the one item it's required is the brand new Wheel of Torment staff, okay? And to be clear, for my tier 6, I put on a critical strike multiplier. You could put on necrotic damage, you could put on cast speed, you could put on necrotic penetration, lots of different things. I just put on critical strike. Now, what does this new staff do? Plus to Acolyte skill levels up to 3. Base intelligence. When you directly cast Soul Feast, you curse yourself and up to 1 nearby enemy per 10 intelligence with Torment. So we have 100 intelligence, which means we can torment 10 enemies without casting Chthonic Fissure. You can manually cast Torment. It's ridiculous. On top of that, you gain haste for 3 seconds when you directly cast Soul Feast, which you're doing all the time. So you're 100% up on your haste chance, increase haste effect on you, and this can roll with up to 90% necrotic penetration with Torment. Mine rolled with the 17%, which is terrible. So obviously there's a large roll range in there. And then for the final one, chance to cast Chthonic Fissure when you hit a boss or rare enemy with Soul Feast and don't have an active Fissure, which means on top of that, in a boss fight or something like that, you literally don't even have to cast Chthonic Fissure if you don't want to, because this will manually cast it for you 1 in 5 hits. And obviously you are using it over and over and over again. So this is the updated Chthonic Fissure Witchfire Warlock based upon necrotic resistance over cap. Now, you will notice down here on my skill bar, I have Transplant and I have Profane Veil. You have 2 free movement skills because your other skills are being auto-triggered, which means just because we are not spec'd into a movement skill doesn't mean you don't have one. You're going to be using these all the time. And again, they are free. Awesome damage, awesome survivability. Torment feels great, and you are just going to be bouncing over the map. I think you're really going to like it. That's the build. Again, I'm currently live on Twitch as I am talking. We are hosting our subathon right now. We've already been live for over 12 hours, and currently the timer is at 66 hours. Thank you all for the donations. I appreciate you all so much. It's definitely going to be a wild couple of days, but I am excited for it. And now that this build is done, we're going to be moving over to Ghost Flame. But before I do that, I'm going to test out this Spine Sword a little more to see if we could figure something out with Flame Whip. I'm done. Hopefully you're entertained or at least learned something. Aaron, out.